It's a Wednesday morning, and Diana is sitting at her kitchen table, doing something she does every payday. She opens her banking app, watches the direct deposit hit, and then watches it leave. $520 to the credit cards, $310 to the student loans, $387 to the car payment. In under 60 seconds, $1,217 is gone. Not invested, not saved, not building anything, just gone. Sent to 3 different institutions for the privilege of having borrowed money years ago. Diana is 34, good job in HR, makes $67,000 a year. She contributes a little to her 401k. She doesn't overspend on clothes. She meal preps on Sundays. She is, by every visible measure, a responsible person doing responsible things with her money. But every time she gets a raise, she doesn't feel ahead. She feels slightly less behind. Because Diana is carrying $23,400 in credit card debt across 3 cards, $28,000 left on student loans she's been paying since 2015, and a car payment she told herself she'd clear quickly. She hasn't. Diana is not careless. She budgets, she tracks. She just hasn't been able to answer one question cleanly in about 6 years. A question that sounds simple, but that she's been unconsciously avoiding because the honest answer makes her uncomfortable. What would I actually do with my money if none of that debt existed? Now meet Daniel. He's 43, same city, similar income, $71,000 a year. 3 years ago, he made his last consumer debt payment, last credit card, last student loan installment, last car note. All cleared within an 18-month stretch. His income didn't change. His job didn't change. His lifestyle didn't transform into something unrecognizable. But in the 12 months after that final payment, he invested more money than he had in the previous 8 years combined. Not because he earned more, because the math finally had room to work. Today, I'm going to follow both of them. What Diana's money is actually doing right now, dollar by dollar. What Daniel's money started doing the moment the last account closed. And exactly what the gap between these two people looks like when you compound it over 10 and 20 years. Because the personal finance world spends enormous energy telling you how to pay off debt. The methods, the apps, the snowball versus avalanche debate. Almost nobody shows you the full picture of what happens after. What happens to your cash flow? What happens to your investment capacity? What happens to your actual financial trajectory when the payments stop and the money suddenly has somewhere else to go? That's what this is. My name is Andy, and this is Andy Explains Money. Let's start with Diana's numbers, because most people in her situation significantly underestimate what their debt is actually costing them. Not the interest rate. The interest rate is just a number on a screen. The real cost. The one nobody calculates. On the surface, Diana's monthly debt payments look like this. Credit cards. She pays $520 a month across 3 cards. That sounds responsible until you look at where that money actually goes. At an average APR of 22%, roughly $380 of that $520 is pure interest. She is paying $380 a month to stay in place, not to get ahead, not to reduce her balance meaningfully, to stand still. The remaining $140 actually chips away at what she owes. The rest is rent she's paying on her own debt. Her student loans cost her $310 a month at 6.5% interest. Her car payment is $387 a month. Total monthly debt obligation, $1,217. That's $1,217 every month that cannot go anywhere else. It cannot be invested. It cannot compound. It cannot build anything. It just leaves her account, goes to 3 different creditors, and does absolutely nothing for her future. Now, here's the number Diana has probably never calculated. And this is the number that changes how you think about debt permanently once you see it. If she took that same $1,217 a month, the exact amount currently servicing her debt, and put it into a basic S&P 500 index fund earning the historical average of 8% annually, starting today, here's what she'd have. In 10 years, $221,000. In 20 years, $716,000. She is not investing $1,217 a month. She is servicing debt with it, which means that $716,000 is not a number she's building toward. It is a number she is forfeiting, quietly, every month, without a single line item on any statement that says future wealth declined by $716,000. The loss is invisible. It doesn't show up anywhere, but it's real, and it's compounding in the wrong direction. And that's before we calculate the interest drag, the total cost of carrying this debt to its natural conclusion at her current payment pace. Diana will pay approximately $14,800 in credit card interest before those cards are cleared. Her student loans will cost her another $9,200 in interest over the remaining term. Her car loan adds $2,100 more. That's $26,100 in interest payments she will make on top of the money she already borrowed. $26,100 that will never appear in any account she owns. That will never compound. That will never grow. It just evaporates into the financial system and disappears. Here's a way to understand what that number actually represents. $26,100 is a fully funded Roth IRA for 3.5 years. It's the seed capital for almost any small business you'd want to start. It's a meaningful chunk of a house down payment. It is not nothing. It's just gone before it ever had a chance to be anything. I want to introduce a concept here that I think about a lot, and I've never seen anyone else frame it this way. I call it the debt tax. Not the interest rate. The interest rate is just the mechanism. The debt tax is the compounding future value of every dollar that leaves your account in interest payments instead of investment contributions. It's the wealth you would have built if those dollars had been working for you instead of against you. The debt tax is invisible. It doesn't appear on any statement. It's permanent. You can never get those years of compounding back. And almost nobody calculates it. Diana hasn't calculated it. Most people carrying debt haven't. And that's exactly why the moment the debt stops, the moment those payments end and the money redirects, is so much more significant than the personal finance world gives it credit for. It's not just relief. It's a complete inversion of the financial math governing your life. Let's go back to Daniel, specifically to the 18 months before his last payment. Daniel had $41,000 in consumer debt at his peak. Credit cards, a student loan, and a car note. Roughly the same composition as Diana's. He used the debt avalanche method, which means he ordered his debts by interest rate, highest to lowest, and attacked them in that sequence while paying minimums on everything else. Credit cards first because they were destroying him at 24% APR. Student loans second. Car note last. The avalanche method wins mathematically in almost every scenario. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Marketing Research confirmed what the numbers already show. Paying the highest interest debt first minimizes total interest paid. On Daniel's debt load, it saved him approximately $4,300 in interest compared to the snowball method of paying smallest balance first. But here's what happened operationally as each account closed, and this is the part that matters more than the method itself. When his first credit card hit zero, he didn't celebrate by absorbing that payment into his lifestyle. He didn't upgrade his streaming package or start eating out more. He stacked the freed payment onto the next debt. This is the avalanche in action. Not just a priority order, but a compounding attack. Each cleared payment becomes ammunition for the next target. His monthly extra payment toward debt grew from $400 to $680 to $1,100 as each account fell. The payoff timeline accelerated in a way that felt almost unfair given how impossibly slow it felt at the beginning. The first card took 14 months. The last debt took 4. Same income the entire time. The math just compressed as each payment stacked. And then the last payment cleared. Total freed monthly cash flow, $1,340. Here's exactly where it went, in this order. Because the order matters enormously, and most people get it wrong. First, he paused. 3 months. No investing. No aggressive moves. He rebuilt his emergency fund to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings. Not because it was exciting, but because he needed to make sure he was never one bad month away from putting something back on a credit card. The emergency fund isn't the goal. It's the insurance policy that protects every financial move you make after it. Then he deployed. And the deployment sequence is critical. First dollar, his employer's 401k match. He'd been contributing 2%, enough to get half the match. He bumped it to 6% to capture the full employer match. That's a guaranteed 50% return on those dollars before the market does a single thing. There is nothing else in personal finance that offers a guaranteed 50% return. Nothing. You take the match first, always. Second, a Roth IRA. $583 a month, maxing the annual $7,000 contribution limit. Every dollar in there grows completely tax-free. The IRS never touches the gains. Not now, not when he withdraws in retirement. Not ever. For someone in their 30s or 40s, a maxed Roth IRA is one of the most powerful wealth-building vehicles available. And Daniel couldn't sustain contributions to one for years because the money kept getting absorbed back into debt payments. Third, everything remaining went into a taxable brokerage account, low-cost index funds, set to auto-invest on the 1st and 15th of every month, something he'd tried to start 3 times before and couldn't sustain because there was never enough left after the debt payments. Total monthly investment after the deployment, $1,100. Not all $1,340. Some went to the emergency fund top-up and a modest lifestyle adjustment he'd genuinely earned. But $1,100 a month consistently invested at 8% annually. In 10 years, $201,000. In 20 years, $651,000. Daniel did not get a promotion. He did not inherit money. He did not start a business or pick individual stocks or discover some secret the rest of the world missed. He just closed the last account. And compound interest, which had been working against him for years in the form of APR, flipped sides and started working for him. The same mathematical force, pointed in the opposite direction. The result is a completely different life. Now, here's the part the spreadsheet can't capture. The part that doesn't show up in any compound interest calculator, but that changes everything about how you make decisions. A 2019 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked people before and after their debts were fully eliminated. Not reduced, eliminated. The results were striking. Anxiety dropped from 78% of participants showing clinical-level symptoms down to 53%. A 25 percentage point reduction in diagnosable anxiety from closing debt accounts alone. Income didn't change. Life circumstances didn't change. The debt went away, and the anxiety followed it out the door. But more importantly for what we're talking about today, cognitive performance improved. People made measurably better financial decisions after debt elimination. They became less impulsive, less likely to choose the short-term option at the expense of the long-term outcome, less likely to make fear-based choices. The brain doesn't experience debt as a number on a statement. It experiences debt as an open threat. And managing an open threat, even a quiet one, even one you've gotten used to, uses cognitive resources constantly, in the background, all the time. Resources that would otherwise go toward higher-order thinking, career planning, risk assessment, long-term strategy, creative problem-solving. This is why Diana filters every major life decision through one silent question she's never quite articulated out loud. Can I still cover the payments if this goes wrong? Take the job with more responsibility and a slightly lower base salary because the growth trajectory is better? She runs the payment math first. Can she go part-time for a year while she builds the consulting practice she's been sketching out in notebooks? Payments. Can she take the unpaid credential program that would get her the qualification she actually needs for the next career level? Payments. The debt is not just a financial obligation. It is a career constraint she didn't agree to explicitly and has never written down, but feels every single time an opportunity shows up that requires any amount of risk. The debt doesn't say no. It says, "Are you sure?" And it says it loudly enough to make her hesitate. And hesitation, over years, compounds the same way money does, except in the wrong direction. Daniel stopped running that calculation, not because he's reckless, because the calculation changed. With no mandatory consumer debt payments and a growing investment account, one bad quarter at work doesn't cascade into a financial crisis. One job transition doesn't threaten the mortgage. The floor dropped, and when the floor drops, the ceiling rises. He took a lateral move 18 months after his last debt payment. Same salary, different company. Better equity upside, better long-term trajectory. He wouldn't have done it before. The risk math didn't work when he had $1,200 in monthly debt obligations. It worked after. Researchers at Northwestern University found that carrying high debt-to-asset ratios correlates with measurably higher blood pressure and worse self-reported health outcomes, even after controlling for income. This isn't a metaphor. The debt was a physiological burden, and when it closed, the body noticed the same way the mind did. Let me make this concrete, because the gap between Diana and Daniel is not destiny. It's a sequence, and sequences can be started. Step 1. Choose your method and understand what each one actually costs you. Debt avalanche, highest interest rate first, wins mathematically in almost every scenario. On a $50,000 combined debt load at mixed interest rates, Avalanche typically saves $3,000 to $6,000 in total interest compared to Snowball. If you have high APR credit card debt, Avalanche is not a preference. It's the arithmetically correct answer. Debt Snowball, smallest balance first, wins psychologically for some people. And the research actually supports this. Closing accounts matters to the brain more than the dollar amount of relief. The satisfaction of eliminating an entire line of debt generates momentum that the avalanche method sometimes doesn't provide in the early months. If you've tried Avalanche and stalled, Snowball is not a failure. It's a different tool, optimized for a different variable. The best method is the one you'll actually finish. Step 2. Find the extra payment. Because acceleration changes everything. On Diana's $23,400 in credit card debt at 22% APR, paying only the minimum means she clears it in approximately 9 years and pays $21,000 in interest. Adding $200 a month extra, $200, cuts that timeline to 3 years and saves $15,000 in interest. That's the difference between a $21,000 tax on her own money and a $6,000 one. $15,000 determined entirely by whether she can find $200 a month. A subscription she forgot she had. One fewer dinner out per week. a temporary side income. The $200 is almost always findable. The $15,000 it saves is not replaceable. Step 3. Know exactly what you're doing the day the last payment clears. Because this is where most people lose the compounding advantage they just spent years fighting to create. The payment disappears from the budget, and the money quietly drifts into better takeout, a streaming upgrade, a slightly nicer apartment, an extra subscription or two. Within 6 months, the freed cash flow has been fully absorbed into lifestyle. And the person who just spent 3 years grinding through debt payoff ends up with the same amount of investable income they had before. 0. The freed cash flow has to have a destination before the last account closes, not after, before. You decide where the money goes while you're still making payments, so that when the final payment hits, the redirect is automatic. Not a decision, a system. The sequence, in order. Rebuild the emergency fund first. 6 months of expenses in liquid savings before a single dollar goes anywhere ambitious. Then, capture the full 401k employer match, because that's a guaranteed 50 to 100% return, and nothing else competes with it. Then, max the Roth IRA, $7,000 in 2025. Tax-free growth forever. Then, increase 401k contributions toward the annual limit of $23,500. Then, taxable brokerage with low-cost index funds for everything remaining. If you're redirecting $1,000 a month through that sequence at 8% average annual returns, $183,000 in 10 years, $593,000 in 20. You didn't need a windfall. You didn't need a new job. You didn't need to discover the next great investment. You needed the payments to stop and the redirect to be intentional. That's it. That's the entire mechanism. Diana and Daniel earn almost the same income. They live in the same city. They're not different people in any way that would show up on the surface. Same education level, same professional class, same general lifestyle. If you met them both at a dinner party, you wouldn't be able to tell who was building wealth and who was treading water. But Diana is building a number she can't see. The compounding future value of every dollar leaving her account in interest payments. A number that grows larger every month and will eventually represent hundreds of thousands of dollars in wealth she never built. Daniel is building a different number, the kind that shows up in an account balance, the kind that generates returns on its own, the kind that changes what decisions are available to you, what risks you can take, and how you experience your own life. The gap between them is not income. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's the presence or absence of $1,200 a month that has somewhere to go other than servicing the past. And here's the thing about that gap. It starts small. In year 1, Diana and Daniel look almost identical from the outside. Same apartments, same cars, same restaurants. By year 5, there's a noticeable difference. Daniel has $80,000 invested. Diana has the same debt balance barely moving. By year 10, Daniel has $200,000 that Diana doesn't. By year 20, that number is over $500,000. The gap doesn't grow linearly. It accelerates. Because that's what compounding does when you finally give it room to work. And that's what compounding does in reverse when debt keeps taking the room away. Diana is going to get there. She's meticulous. She tracks everything. She has the habits. She just hasn't run the full number yet. Not the balance. She knows the balance. Not the interest rate. She knows the rate. The number she hasn't run is the cost of the balance. The compounded future value of every dollar currently leaving her account in interest payments. The wealth she's forfeiting by staying in the debt cycle 1 more year, 2 more years, 5 more years. If you're watching this as a Diana, if you recognized something in that Wednesday morning scene, the paycheck hitting and the money leaving before you can even think about what else it could do, run the full number. Not just what you owe, what you're forfeiting by continuing to owe it. Look at that number once. Really look at it. Because the people who close the gap fastest aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who understood what staying in debt was actually costing them. Not the interest rate, the future, and decided that number was no longer acceptable. The debt isn't just a balance, it's a toll on every dollar that passes through your life. And the day you stop paying that toll is the day your money finally starts working for you instead of against you. Everything changes after that. Not because your income changed, because the direction of the math did. Subscribe to Andy Explains Money if you want the next breakdown. I'll see you there.